Hello everyone. We will get started very soon. Just finishing setting everything up here. There's always stuff to set up whenever we start, but that's okay. That's why I usually start a few minutes earlier than I actually need to start for that reason. Hey, let's see who was first. Sandy commented first at 148. That was 빌리님 안녕하세요. Leonardo, hey. Josh, Little Miss Mo, Sakuya Luigi. Hello from Florida. You make it sound like it's another country. You're like, I'm tuning in all the way from Florida. Okay, let me just look at the chat here. Hey, Himang, grabbing food, ready soon. All right, nice. Let's pop out this chat. Okay. So I've made some changes since the last streams, and we'll get started really soon. There's just always a few minutes of prep work before we can start the stream. As usual, it's a lot of stuff to get ready. So one thing is I'll now have your comments right on here, so I don't have to like look off really far to see them. They'll be kind of right in front of me. Let's put them even closer. Yeah, let's put them right here. All right, nice. I finally get to see a live from the start. All right. Yes, today we're going to be doing, let's see if I could turn that up. Let's see if I could put that like right there. Yeah. I don't know how this sounds, but I never thought I'd be learning Korean from a non-native Korean. Yes, I know how that sounds. And I guess I'm not complaining, but I understand that if I was a native Korean, I might get more people to trust me off the bat. Because I know that not being a native Korean, I understand that. It immediately looks like, oh, this guy couldn't know Korean because he's not a native. So his Korean can't be perfect, which is true. My Korean can't be native because I'm not a native. But fortunately, I've slowly grown anyway, and people have watched my videos and kind of started to trust what I have to say. So I figured it would be okay in the long run. But I did understand that in the beginning, that would definitely hurt my chances for success on YouTube. Take your time prepping. No, well, everything for today's lesson is ready. But when I start the YouTube stream, there's some things I have to set up. Like I have to open up the comments on a tablet so I can read them. And I can't see the comments until I actually start the stream. So like I have to do these things after I start the stream. Oh, Dan J. Look at Dan J's little KeyCat tag next to his name. That means you've been a member for over a month now. So you're in your second month. So you got upgraded to the KeyCat one. All right, Ahimang's ready. Okay, a couple things. So I'll give you a summary of what we're going to be doing today. Again, you guys voted for it, and I would have done it anyway, but since you voted for it, we'll do it this week. That is politeness levels, which are a gigantic topic in Korean. And you can find videos about lots of parts, lots of different aspects of politeness levels on the internet already. But you can't really find full videos giving overviews about politeness levels, which is kind of why I wanted to do this video. I know that Talk to Me in Korean makes some great videos on specific pieces of politeness levels. Like, when can you use this form? When can you not use that? Or how are you supposed to speak with this type of person in this situation? And I've seen several videos for them, and they're really good. And a lot of them are done by Hyunwoo, and he goes into detail about them, and they're great. But I couldn't really find any videos that just give an overview of kind of the general idea of politeness levels. And so hopefully this video will be one of those. And I think that it's a very gigantic topic. Now, we're not going to be going into all of the details today because, like I mentioned, in Korean, there would be, for one thing, there's dozens of different words for different types of people in your family. Like, you might have a word for example, 처남, which would be, like wife's brother. And there's different terms for people who are related to you and how they're related to that person or how they're related to that person, and all these different terms. And depending on who you're talking with and what your status is and everything like that, you might have to speak to people differently. And you could go into details about this all day and still be confused about it. And the reality is, Koreans sometimes also can get confused about exactly how you're supposed to talk with someone. So they'll usually kind of feel out the situation depending on how they feel it should go. So first thing I wanted to say about politeness levels is that you don't need to master politeness levels in Korean. There are some safeguards, there are some safety nets, that's the word. There are some safety nets that you can learn, some kind of fallback methods. So in case you're not really sure what to do, there are ways to be safe speaking Korean, having the appropriate amount of politeness, but not being overly polite, that you can learn without learning every single detail and mastering it. Because honestly, you cannot master this. Koreans get very good at it. Koreans pretty much can master it, but they spend their whole lives enveloped in using Korean politeness levels. As a Korean learner, you cannot get that. You're not going to be inside of the Korean culture because you're always an outsider unless you master Korean first. Then you kind of get accepted in. It's a huge thing, so don't stress about mastering these. If you finish today's lesson and you feel like, oh, I kind of get it, but I still don't feel really confident on it, that's fine. You're good. I'm going to teach you, like I said, some fallbacks that you can use in case you're not really sure what's the correct thing to do. I'm going to give you a good overview of generally how politeness levels work, as well as talk about some of those in detail. Feel free to ask questions. In the chat, we have a moderator, which is A and then HUIMANG, A Himang. And if you have a really important question, you can ping it to her and she'll probably try to convey it to me because I might not always be looking at the chat. But let's see. I didn't get a chance to talk before the stream. Oh, that's okay. We'll talk in the Discord chat. And that's the other thing I wanted to announce today, which I'm going to, we have a Discord. I'm not going to put the link right now, but basically we have a chat room. Discord is just a chat room. It's like, the old days of like Yahoo chat on the internet. It's kind of like that. We have a chat room where people meet to discuss Korean, talk about my new videos, talk about other videos. It's not only for me. And it's pretty active right now, but we only have a few members. It's been in beta. We've been testing it and adding features. And today, please do, yes, okay. Today we're going to be opening that up. So after this live stream finishes today, check out the community tab on my YouTube channel. If you don't already go there, I sometimes post things there. Check out the community tab after this live stream has finished, and there will be a link to access the Discord chat. And like I said, it's a chat room for learning Korean, practicing Korean. You can interact with other people there. I hang out there sometimes. I'm not always there, but you can get some additional help from Korean. So yes. 다음 빌리 내가 한국어를 쓰지 않고 어떻게 한국어를 배울 수 있는지 말해줄 수 있는 말씨가 없다. Nice. For next time, Okay, well, I haven't decided what I'm going to do for next time, though, yet. Let's see. From Spain, your classes are great. Contractions in Korean. Yes, a lot of topics we want to go. So like I said, this is just an overview of politeness levels. Do not expect to get an in-depth look into Korean politeness levels because we only have 2 hours today. And I'm going to try to finish at 4. So I want to make sure I keep this in. So yeah, again, after the chat, after this, I keep saying chat, after this live stream finishes, check the community tab for a link to join the chat room, which is a Korean community chat room, and it'll be completely open. And if you're a member of this channel, message me in the chat and I'll give you a special flair that lets you access some other channel that you can only see if you're a member through YouTube. Ready to learn. Hello all. Zilly. Hey Zilly. Still not totally done. Yes, the chat room is still evolving. We're still working on it and adding features. But we figure we'll open it up and see where it goes from there. It's already working though. We have a word of the day where every day you can practice Korean sentences using a word that gets put up. And we have some moderators in there which help keep everything, organized and, keep away any bad trolls. We don't mind nice trolls, but we keep out the bad trolls. And we also have, you can post resources there and you can do voice channels and practice speaking in Korean if you want. So yes, and that is a Dan J. It's already pretty sick. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, it's small currently because I only opened it up to members of the YouTube here. There's about 16 of you, and my Patreons, which is about 40 so of them. So it only has a few dozen people right now because we've kept it small. But today we're going to be opening it up to everyone else who wants to join. So in Korean, like this lesson is going to be for every level in Korean as long as you know the absolute basics. As long as you know some basic phrases, you know the alphabet, if you can read this, if you can read that, and you know some basic phrases, 안녕하세요, hello, and all that stuff, then this lesson it will be appropriate for you. If you already know the alphabet and you know how to speak Korean, this will also be helpful for you too. It's going to be an overview. If you already speak fluent Korean, it'll be less helpful for you, but I'll try to include some stuff. So in Korean, in case you don't already know this, the way that you speak with someone completely depends on several things. Make sure I spell hierarchy wrong. I mean, spell it right this time. I spelled it wrong on my paper. Okay. Oh, and the outlines that I do for the lessons, these are all posted on Patreon. So if you're already a Patreon supporter, thank you. And you can check those out as soon as this finishes too. So the way that you talk to someone in Korean depends on several things, but those things are all related to social hierarchy. So what is social hierarchy? Well, it's a fancy word that makes it more difficult to explain. But social hierarchy is just how are you in relation to someone else? For example, your age. And this is the first one, and this is the most important one to consider, but not the only one. There are others. This is the most important thing to consider. I'm just circling and highlighting it and putting stars around it. Your age in relation to someone else's age. So this hierarchy or, structure, think of it like, a pyramid or a graph or however you want to think of it. The way that you talk to someone in Korean will always depend on your social hierarchy in relation. How do you relate to that person? What's your relationship to that person? And the types of relationships that you can look at. So it's not just, oh, well, he's my brother, so that's my relationship. No. There's a lot of different things that change how are you in relation to that other person? What's your position? And the first thing you can look at is someone's age. So to give you a kind of an example of that, if you are a teenager and you're talking, so let's say I'll use this space up here. Oh, and I got a new eraser because the other one dissolved. While I tried to clean it, it dissolved while cleaning it. So it's okay. It's like 50 cents. So I ordered like a 6-pack. Okay. So if you are, say you're 15, right? So you're a teenager, you're in high school, and you're walking down the street and you see your teacher, okay? Your teacher obviously is older than you. So your teacher is Let's say 35. Your teacher's 35, okay? Teacher. And you. The way you talk to that teacher is going to be different because they are older than you. It's going to be different than how you would talk to someone else who's in your class who's also 15. Okay? So I'd say the age is the most important thing to consider when you're taking into account social hierarchy. Where am I in relation to the person who I'm talking with? The next thing, and I'll go over these in a little more detail. I'm just giving you a brief overview first. The next thing that matters after someone's age. So let's put that here. Let's put that here. Age. The next thing that matters is your relationship. Okay, so your relationship with that person. For example, if they're your mom, right? You're 15, but your mom is 35, right? It doesn't matter that your mom is 30 or 15. She wouldn't be your same age, but just for example, it doesn't matter your mom's age. If she's older than you or way older than you, the relationship will also take precedence over the age. So without regards to age, your relationship to that person can also be important. For example, boyfriend or girlfriend. If you're dating someone who's a little bit older than you, you don't have to be extra polite to that person. You can talk with them as if you're equals. You see, the point of Korean politeness levels is that the idea is in Korean, the Korean language, is that people are not always at an equal level, okay? So, do you see somebody as being higher than you, someone you should respect, a teacher, someone who's older than you, someone who has more experience, someone who's not related to you, a stranger? Or do you see someone as being lower than you socially, such as a classmate who you don't like, maybe, a little kid, an animal, an employee of yours, and you're a boss, right? This is the idea, is where do two people match on this social level? Now, in English, that doesn't matter. You might feel that a person is worthy of respect, but you are not going to talk so differently to them in English as you would have to in Korean. For example, I'm walking down the street and I run into Hugh Jackman, right? Hugh Jackman, I think he's in his 50s now. He still looks really good. Anyway, so I run into Hugh Jackman. He's like 50-something. I'm not going to have to speak politely to him more than I would have to speak to any other stranger who I see. I would say, oh, hey, nice to see you in the area, Hugh. Take care, right? In Korean, no. In Korean, that person is much older than you. That person is someone you don't have a good relationship. You don't know. You don't have any relationship with them. You're not dating him. No way. You have to be more polite because in that social situation, that person is much higher than you. In addition, he's a celebrity, right? You can't just talk down to someone who's a celebrity. They're obviously above you. And in Korean, that's important. So pay attention to a person's social hierarchy whenever you're talking with them. And I'll talk about, in a moment, I'll talk about what types of people that is, more than just, I'll talk about a little more detail, because I know I haven't given much detail about that. Can you agree to not to use politeness with someone? Yes, we will talk about that too. We'll talk about that as well. This is first just a general overview, and then we'll go into some details, and I'll definitely be taking questions on this. Okay, the next thing is, so a person's age is the first thing to pay attention to. The next is your relationship with them. So are you dating them? Are they your family, right? Family members, something like that. Next thing is the workplace. You know how if you've ever worked in a company, so if you've had a job and a customer asks you a question, you're not going to just say, yeah, sure, bro, no problem. You probably wouldn't. I mean, unless that's the style at the store. Usually you'd be polite to them. You're not going to swear at the customer, right? You're not going to use slang with the customer. Well, you shouldn't, especially at a professional company, right? Say you're working for Microsoft and a client calls you. So it's a very important client. They're making you money and they say, hey, can you make some changes to our program? And you're at Microsoft. You wouldn't say, yeah, bro, no prob. Sure, be right on that. Talk to you later, TTYL. You're not going to do that because it's totally unprofessional. Korean would also not do that either. And you would have to speak more politely because in that social hierarchy, you even though you're the business and they're the customer is higher than you, right? They are the ones providing your income or at least allowing you to keep your job. If they complain to your boss, who's also higher than you, you can get fired. So you have to think about, how is this person in relation to me? Are they equals? When you're working for a client, are you an equal with the client in Korea? No, the client is higher than you. So they have to get more respect. And in fact, in that situation, the client would know that. And it's possible that the client might even be talking down to you as well, right? Not using as polite forms as you would be using up to him or her. Does this kind of make sense? So however you are on the scale, that's how you talk to them. And that's also how they would probably talk to you. So if you're meeting with a teacher and the teacher is obviously older than you, not related to you, and although it's not work, it's a professional situation. So, I'll put anything that's professional or that you have to be kind of polite to do. So you're talking to your teacher who's older than you and not close with you. You're going to be talking really respectfully to that teacher. And we'll talk about how to do this respectfully, but first just the general overview of it. And that teacher knows that situation. The teacher knows they're higher than you. The teacher knows you're younger than me. You're my student. I don't have to be polite, extra polite to you. The teacher's going to also talk a bit down to the students. Maybe not be rude, maybe, but not try to be extra polite, because the teacher knows that in this social situation, he or she is higher than you are. Next thing, and and the other thing to keep in mind for that is, if you've heard these, I don't know if you've heard these terms before. Sunbae and Hoobae. Have you heard these before? This is senior and junior, I guess. They're not really, there aren't really translations for these words in English. So I'm just writing senior and junior in quotes. This isn't really what the word means. Sunbae is if you're in the workplace and you've been working there for 10 years, right? And a new guy comes in the workplace, and the new guy has been working there for a week. And the new guy is a couple of years older than you. So in this situation, let's do this. So you're 20. That wouldn't make sense. How would you work there for 10 years if you're 20? Okay, you're 30. And you've been working at the company for 10 years, okay? A new guy comes in, and he's 36. So he's older than you, right? He's older than you. You better speak politely to him. No. He has been working here for 1 week. He's new, or maybe even a year. This guy, in this situation, in the workplace, he is your junior, Hoobae. So this junior-senior thing is whoever's more senior, whoever has worked there longer, whoever has more experience, whoever's been there longer is the senior, and whoever has been there less is a junior. And this is a relationship between two people. So if you have any two people in the workplace, one person will be the other person's senior, and the other person will be a junior, unless you've been working there at the same time. Have you ever felt weird using 반말 with someone the first time? Yes, you cannot do that. And we'll talk about that next when we go into 반말. You cannot do that, except in some situations, which I'll also talk about. So this workplace dynamic, this workplace hierarchy, is also just as important in age. Now, if a new person comes in and they're like 60, right? So they come in, they're 60, and they've only been working here for a week. In that case, you might feel, even though they're brand new, even though you could speak down to them, because technically now you're kind of higher than them due to your superiority. They're much older than you, so you might feel that. You might feel like, oh, but he's a lot older than me. Like, I don't want to be rude. So you might not speak down to him. You might kind of speak similar to him, But if you leave the workplace and you see him outside on a regular day, he's definitely your senior. He's definitely older than you. So you better be respectful to him. So that's kind of the idea. And that's why I'm saying this is not something that you have to master. This is not something you have to master. Like, oh, what if he's 30? Okay, what if he's 31? Okay, now what if he's 32? Okay, what if he's 40? You know, you don't have to know every single possibility that you can be polite or rude in Korean, because it's not cut in stone. It's not cut and dry. There aren't hard rules for politeness levels. I'll say that again. There are not hard rules for politeness levels in Korean. There are not. So there are not rules that you can simply memorize and master politeness levels. A lot of it is feeling out the situation. So like I was saying, in the workplace, someone who's older than you but hasn't been there very long, they are technically in a lower social rank than you are. You would be higher than them, so you don't have to be so polite with them. But other factors can influence that. Maybe they're really a stranger to you. Maybe they're friends with the boss, right? That would change your relationship with them. Maybe they're much older than you. That could change the relationship. That can change the social hierarchy. Okay, and one more thing that can influence how you speak to somebody, that is when you're in a one-on-one situation. This is only sometimes. Sometimes. I gotta buy new markers. These ones came for free with the whiteboard, but they are already dying after like 1 month. So I have to buy some new markers. I put them in my Amazon wish list already though. Change the marker. Yeah, I'll change the marker. The red and the black work fine, but the blue ones just like kill me now. Especially in the military. Yes, in the military as well. So the military would apply to the workplace too. Even though someone comes in the military and they're older than you, doesn't matter. In the military, you could be 40. Well, you probably wouldn't, but you could be in your 30s and you go to the military and there's this guy in his 20s who's talking down to you because you are new and he has been there already. And he would totally talk down to you in that situation. And you have to talk up to him, and you can't say anything about that. You can't complain because age doesn't matter. The workplace can sometimes go over the age. Same with the relationship. The age is the most basic thing and the most important thing, but other things can trump that. Other things can go above that. Another thing that can go above everything is, I wrote one-on-one. So if you're talking with just somebody one-to-one, but this is really just if you have permission. And this really applies to people who are learning Korean more than it applies to native Koreans. If you're learning Korean and you're talking with a Korean person, chances are that person's not the same age as you. They are native Korean and they might feel, if you're talking down to them, they might kind of feel like, you know, you're much older than them. They might get uncomfortable with that if you're younger than them and they're older, and they might want to be friendly with you. So they might want to use slang Korean with you, and then they want you to use slang Korean with them. They want to be friends with you. They know you're a foreigner. They know you're not a Korean. In this situation, older Koreans might give you permission to speak casually with them. This is not something that they do so much with native Koreans. It's a different process, how native Koreans will change the way they're speaking. But if you're not a native Korean and you're talking with a native Korean and you become friends with them, so notice I didn't say relationship here depends on being friends so much. But if you get permission from them, and this happens a lot if you're not a Korean, because they want to speak casually with you just because they like it. They like interacting with someone from another culture and they want to be casual, even if they're older than you. So often when I was learning Korean, older Korean people I meet would say, "Hey, Billy, can we just speak 반말? Can we just use casual Korean to each other?" Even though they would be like 35 and I was like 20. It's not going to happen in regular Korean culture, but because I'm not a Korean, this person would want to do it. But that is only in that one-on-one situation. If we then met his parents, then I would have to go back to speaking politely to him in front of his parents, because it would kind of seem rude if there's two people and the really younger person is speaking down to someone who's much older without any other reason. So you have to adjust based on the situation. And like I said, this is only sometimes. You might get permission from a Korean, and if you do, then you can also change your social hierarchy that way. So again, quick summary, the main thing that influences how you talk to someone is your age. The next one is your relationship, such as boyfriend, girlfriend, or family, or maybe your childhood friends, and you really, really know this person. Even though they're a couple years older than you, you might see them as an equal, right? Okay. And then the workplace or military, situations that are business-like or very formal that don't care about your age or your relationship. They just care about where is your position right now in this structure, in this workplace. How are you ranked? Are you more superior? Are you a senior? Are you a newbie? Have you been there a long time or a short time? These also affect how you talk with someone. And again, you do not have to master these. I just want you to be aware of them. And then now I'm going to show you some tricks. Because now you just know the idea, but I haven't taught you at all how to actually use any of this Korean, have I? So I'm going to take a break for a second and look at some comments. I think that's when respect for workplace position takes order. Yes, that's right. Both nida. Let's say you're 36, your boss is 27. Your boss is definitely higher than you. Doesn't matter if you're 36, your boss is higher than you. And that I think would be also the same in an American company too. Like typically in America, we don't really care about someone's age, but we do care about someone's rank, right, in a company. And if you're talking with a client, you're going to be respectful to the client. It doesn't matter how old or young they are. And if you're talking to your boss, you're going to be respectful to your boss. You're not going to talk with your boss like you would a coworker in most companies. You know, some companies change this dynamic. Some companies will go out of their way to change how they talk with each other purposely. But it's hard to do that. Like, you can look it up. If you look up on the internet, you'll find an interesting article if you search the company Samsung. Samsung did something, I'm not sure if it's still going on, but they tried to get rid of like speaking extra politely to people who are in higher positions and trying to level it out so that everyone talks the same to each other, hoping that by doing that, they would increase like worker productivity and, well, let me just adjust this higher, that they would be able to improve like how people communicate in the company. But I've asked some Koreans what they thought about this, and it matched what I thought. It's not going to fix anything. It's just going to make the situation awkward. Koreans want to feel this way. They want to know who is higher or lower than another person in a social situation. They kind of want that. So if you force them to speak a way that they're not comfortable with, they're not going, well, if you force them to break out of that and talk opposite to what they think, they're going to be uncomfortable, is what I want to say. So you can't really force a Korean, like some people were saying, oh, they should just get rid of politeness levels. It's so complicated. There's no need, you know. The thing is, that's rooted in culture. That's rooted in a lot of Asian cultures. In China has some kind of light, a little bit less, but Korea and Japan both have this strong feeling within their culture that you should speak differently to people who are at different ranks. Let's see. Is LG? Yes, LG is a Korean company, but I don't like them because they made the worst phones ever back when I was in high school. Is 씁니다 a higher form than yo? Yes, 씁니다, and we will talk about that too. Is it different for boys or girls? If you're different ages, it could be. Slightly, yes. Korean does have slightly different speaking styles for boys and girls, although you won't find too much information about that. BTS works with them. Fighting words, Billy. Okay. Not an insult to the company. I just said I didn't like their phones in the 90s early 2000s, late 90s, when I was going to school and cell phones were starting to come out. They had the Nokia, which was great, and then they had the LG, which was just terrible. So I'll never forgive them for that. Anyway, that's kind of a joke. You know, ask other people my age what they thought about the flip phones at that time. They're not good. Nokia was the good one. What does 바보입니다 mean? It means a girl said that in my school. 바보 is stupid, or well, literally means a fool, but it's kind of how they would jokingly call someone dumb, like, oh, you idiot, or you dork, you know, kind of like that. It's kind of a playful word for stupid. Doesn't mean stupid though. That would actually be a different word, I mean, 멍청하다, which actually means stupid. It's kind of offensive, but 바보 is not offensive, usually. Can you mix 씁니다? Oh yeah, that's right. We'll talk about that. Can agree with what Billy said. Okay. Anyway, I'm sure they're fine now. But anyway, so, and specifically what this means is, so I said that the way you talk will depend on social hierarchy, and I gave you some examples of what types of social hierarchy can change that. What that will change is the grammar that you use. It will change the conjugation of verbs. So whether you use the yo form or the nida form or whatever, and it'll also even change nouns that you use. And by grammar, I'm talking about like particles and just overall, how do you put your sentences together? Are you using every correct particle, or are you just using slang expressions? And of course, expressions. You're not going to be swearing if you wouldn't be allowed to speak down to that person. You're going to be polite, using polite expressions. And there are different expressions in Korean, such as there's different expressions for asking someone's age and asking someone's name that sound completely different depending on who you're talking with. If you're talking to someone who looks to be your same age, you can ask them their name. 이름이 뭐예요? 이름이 뭐예요? To someone who looks really similar to your age and you're meeting them in a casual situation, you could say 이름이 뭐예요? Basically, what is name? What is your name? But if you're talking with somebody in a professional situation and they're a little bit older than you, well, quite older than you, then you have to ask it. And you cannot say 이름이 뭐예요 to someone who's much older than you. It will sound not only awkward, but it'll sound rude, because this type of speaking assumes you're on the same level. But if you're supposed to be talking up to somebody and you use an equal expression, it sounds almost like you're talking down to them. They'll feel, hey, I'm supposed to be above. Why are you talking down, or equal to me? Instead, you'd have to ask, 성함이 어떻게 되세요? And this uses a lot of forms. We're not going to be talking about in detail today, but I'm just illustrating for you that you do have to talk differently depending on who you're talking with. And it's not all this extreme. The way you talk differently is not this extreme. This just so happens to be a special noun that replaces name, and this so happens to be a special phrase that replaces what? But it's not quite this extreme. This is just an extreme example to show you it does change. So you could say 이름이 뭐예요 to someone you think you're equal with, or 성함이 어떻게 되세요? 성함이 어떻게 되세요? To someone who's a higher position than you and much older. But like I said, today we're not going into very minute details. We're just kind of going over the general structure. So in Korean, there are technically 7 politeness levels. I've read this. I disagree. I mean, there are a million politeness levels depending how you define the word politeness level in Korean. But there's definitely 3. There's definitely at least 3 major types of general ways that you would speak with someone based on your relationship. One would be, and let me just show you. Okay, so one would be 반말, which literally means half speech. 반 means half, and 말 means speech or words. And this would be whenever you are equal to, or when you are talking down to someone. So this is exactly equal to or lower. So this is exactly like your best friends. Like your best friends, you're talking with them. Actually, it's even more of talking down to someone, but it could be kind of equal. So it's really casual. A next one would be 존댓말, which means honorifics or polite, basically. And this is when you're talking up to somebody or talking with someone who's kind of, a little bit more above your equal. But let's just simplify this. So these are the 2 main ones, whether you're talking down to someone or you're talking up to someone. It's 1 and 2. And then the third kind is plain. Plain is when you're talking to someone you don't know. And this is what's used in newspapers and essays and journals. These are the 3 main ways that you would speak to someone in Korean. And within 반말, there are many levels of 반말. Within 존댓말, there are many levels of 존댓말, such as there might be the 요 form. There might be the nida form. There might be using Honorifics, humble speech, many things like that. They would all be considered part of this polite way of speaking up to somebody. And then there's plain form, which is simply just the plain form. You don't have, there's not like detailed little pieces of plain form or different types of plain form. It's just, if you don't know who you're talking with, there's a different style of speech that you use all entirely. So these are the two main ones. Of these three, today, if you're going to learn one, only learn this. This one will save you every single time. Every time this will save you. If you do not know how you should talk with someone, you meet someone for the first time, you're in a business situation, you're talking with your friend. If you don't know how you should talk with someone, at least be safe. You can fall back on 존댓말 every time and you will be okay. At the worst, you might sound a little bit awkward if you're supposed to be using casual speech and you've used 존댓말, but you will not sound rude. If you ever use 반말 and you're not 100% sure that you can use it, I mean 100% sure that you can use 반말, it will sound rude. So that's why you have to be careful. That's why I really don't like when if you search random Korean learning resources, you'll find generic, learn this topic all over the place. Sometimes the places will not tell you that the phrase they taught you is actually 반말, is actually slang, basically casual Korean. So you might learn the expression 배고파, I'm hungry, right? From a random website called like 5 Korean phrases to get that date with BTS. There'd be some article name on some random blog. And one of them would be 배고파, right? 5 expressions to use with your oppa on a date. Do not use this with your oppa on it. For one, you're not dating that guy. You're not dating BTS, never. But you have to be really careful about what you're using because this is actually 반말. This is actually part of the lower, familiar, casual way of talking with someone in Korean. And if you were to use this in any situation where you're supposed to use 존댓말, this is rude. So if you were to go to your teacher and say 배고파 to your teacher, you probably would get thrown out of class. If you were to say 배고파 to a stranger, they would think you have a mental disorder or that you're being really rude. It just feels awkward because you feel like, oh, the person I'm talking to right now is lower than me. So it's like someone walking around like, I'm better than you. 배고파. I'm hungry. I'm better than you. You guys are all lower than me without any reason to feel like that. So you could have said 배고파요, which uses 요, which is part of the 존댓말, and you would be safe. You could use this to your teacher. You couldn't use this in the military, but you could use this when meeting someone who you don't know very well, someone who's older than you. You can also use it to someone who's close to you, someone who's at a similar age as you, and you're not going to offend them. At the worst, they might tell you, oh, hey, we're best friends. We've known each other for 10 years. You don't have to speak polite to me. Then that's fine. Now you're good. Now you can speak casually with that person because they've told you. Otherwise, always fall back on 존댓말. You will be safe with 존댓말. And we'll talk about that in detail soon. So I'm going to read the chat for some comments. The truth hurts, yes. Yeah, I don't mean that as an insult, as saying if they might think you have a mental disorder. I don't mean that as an insult to people who have mental disorders. I mean that as they might actually be wondering if you're okay because it's so awkward to misuse politeness levels that much. Like I said, you can't really master these. You can't get perfect. But using casual Korean to someone when you're supposed to be at least slightly polite sounds like there might be something wrong with you. And they might think, oh, you're a strange person just wandering the streets. Like, why are you outside? Are you okay? Do you need help? They might actually be concerned for you. Now, if they see you're a foreigner, they see you're clearly not a Korean, they might think, oh, they just don't know Korean. So I'll accept that. I'll understand that. But not everyone. Most Koreans in general will be okay with the fact that you're not good at Korean. But if you're speaking Korean with them already and you're having a conversation, and then in the middle of the conversation, you suddenly throw out, 반말, they're going to accept it because, they think you just made a little mistake. But if you're just only using slang phrases at them, some Koreans might feel a bit uncomfortable. They might feel like, he's speaking Korean or she's speaking Korean, but why can't she at least be polite to me? I mean, I'm not going to say anything because I know they don't know Korean, but I feel a little bit uncomfortable. So fall back on 존댓말 every time. If you don't know what to use, oh, should I use plain form? Should I use casual? 존댓말. If it has a yo at the end, you're safe. If it has a yo at the end, you're going to be safe pretty much all the time, with a few exceptions. There's, okay, let me check here. It's talking about not dating BTS. Yes, I knew you were talking about that. Just being straightforward that you cannot, I'm sorry, they're not going to date. Okay, well, they might date one of you, but probably not. What about in-laws? Yes, that would be based on how well you know them, your in-laws. Probably though, if they're your in-laws, you're not going to know them that well. You're not going to be spending that much time with them. They're older than you, and you should be respectful. You don't have to be super respectful for them, but you should be generally respectful. You should not use 반말 to your in-laws. Even if you could use 반말 to your brother or sister or any of your siblings or your parents even, you do not go and use it to someone who's outside of your immediate family because it can be taken as rude. Like, if you go to your grandma, you're not going to high-five your grandma who you never meet, right? If you're close with your grandma, yeah, you can high-five her. But if you see your grandma and you haven't seen her since you're a little kid, the first thing you're probably not going to first just give her a high five. Like, unless she's really chill. You're probably not just going to high five your grandma who you haven't met in 20 years. So you have to kind of be aware of that. How close are you with this person? And the factors that would influence how do you relate to that other person in that social hierarchy? So let's get started. That was a 40-minute long intro to give you introduction to this lesson. First thing we're going to talk about is 반말. 반말 is casual speech. So when can you use casual speech? I'll try to speed up because I want to finish all this. Close friends. You can use it with your close friends. If they're pay attention to their age though. If this is a friend who you've known since you're a child, yeah, you can probably safely use this with them. It doesn't matter if they're older than you. If they're kind of a close friend, like you've known them since high school, be careful. If they're much older than you, you might still not use the casual speech with them. It depends on your relationship. I have some Korean friends who I don't use casual speech with, even though I feel pretty close with them. I don't feel that close with them, like someone who I've met and someone who I've known for a couple years. I feel like, oh, they're cool, like they're my friend. I could ask them to hang out, but I still wouldn't want to use casual speech with them because they're not actually a close friend and they're not the same age as me. So age is important too, but also how close are you with that person? Another thing would be, boyfriend, girlfriend, family. And I say family, I mean direct, immediate family, like mom, dad, brother, sister, that kind of close family. Or, stepdad if you're really close, like that. Much needed ability. Yes, and then we'll talk about some more stuff with this. Another thing would be small kids. You don't have to use casual speech you don't have to use polite speech with small kids. I recommend you do. I think it's still polite to use polite Korean with kids, even when you see kids, because their parents might be standing by and the parents might want their kids to learn how to speak politely. And if the stranger walks up and starts using casual speech to their kids, they might get annoyed. They're like, oh, I don't want my kid to learn that. But that's on a case-by-case basis. I'd say in general, though, you're okay using casual speech to small kids, especially little kids and animals. I know I'm putting them in the same category, but if this is where you have to, if you are talking Korean to an animal, obviously the animal doesn't understand you, okay? You're not Dr. Dolittle, but you do not ever use polite Korean to an animal. You have to use casual speech with an animal, 100%. No other situation, like it doesn't matter if that dog has a PhD. Like you do not use polite speech to an animal, because what happens is if you are walking and you see someone's pet dog, right, and it's someone who you know and you say hi to them every day, then you look down at the dog, you say, 안녕하세요, right? Hello, which everyone learned as a way to say hello. 안녕하세요 to the dog, right? Then you look at the person, you say 안녕하세요. You know what they're going to think? Am I the dog? Am I like you're on the same level as me and I'm on the same level as this dog? Is that what I am to you? That's kind of what it's saying. That's kind of what it'll feel like. They'll feel like, why are you talking so polite to my dog and then the same politeness to me? I'm on the same, you think I'm on the same level as the dog. So do not do that. Only just say 안녕, which is casual. This is casual only. 안녕, but you have to say casual speech to animals. So 반말 when I'm speaking to a dog, yes. If the dog talks back to you, the dog will definitely speak politely to you. Trust me on that. Next thing. And then other thing would be talking with yourself. This doesn't matter what situation you're in. If you're meeting with, say, an older acquaintance, so someone who you know but who's 20 years older than you, and you're just talking, you're having dinner, right? You're speaking politely with him or her, and they're speaking a little bit more casually with you, right? You have this dynamic, so they're kind of speaking a little bit down, you're speaking politely to them. And then suddenly you feel this cold breeze come by. You're not going to say, oh, 추워요. It's cold, because you're talking to yourself. When you're talking to yourself, there is no other person. There is no second party. It's just you. You don't have to talk up. You don't have to talk down to anyone. You are just talking to yourself. You need to be casual. Okay. As plain form, and which we'll talk about also today. And 추워 is just regular 반말. FF. Yes, thanks everyone for commenting F. What if I want to be rude? 목소리 asks, what if I want to be rude? Yes, if you use 반말 in situations where you're not supposed to, it will sound rude. So you will be rude if you do that. And the other thing is, like I said, talking with yourself. Since you're not directing it at anyone, you will not speak politely. So you can either speak using plain form, which we'll talk about, which was the third level that I mentioned, or you can talk down to yourself just using 반말, using casual speech. Basically, there is no one that's listening, so you're talking to yourself in this situation. You would not directly look at that other person and say, 추워, because now you are directing at them. Now you're talking with them, so you should be polite. But if you're just talking to yourself, so you're talking with them, haha, you're being polite, and then you feel this cold breeze, then you kind of look down to yourself. You're talking to yourself now, you're like, oh, 추워. It's cold. That's perfectly appropriate to use 반말 when you're talking to yourself, and it's clearly not directed at another person. You're good with that. And of course, as I mentioned, if you have permission. So if someone tells you, please speak casually to me, do it. Like you won't regret it. It's fun to speak casually. Speaking casually with person makes you feel really close with them. But unfortunately, due to how Korean social hierarchy system works, you can't have that friendly banter. You can't have that kind of friendly conversation with everyone who you know in Korea. You just can't. It's unfortunate. You can only be really close with people who you are similar age with, or similar sort of status with. And if you get people who you can speak close with, it's really fun. But so you might get permission to do that. Otherwise, you can't. So a quick summary that I'm going to erase this. You can talk casually, and I'll talk about how you can talk casually. You can talk casually with close friends, really close friends, like a boyfriend, girlfriend, or someone who's really close to you, so family. So if they're really close to you, and these things are kind of the same, if they're really close with you, you can talk casually with them. Oh, Nadine. Hey, thanks for joining. Welcome, Nadine. Check out the community tab right now. You can see a link to the Discord chat already if you're a member. Can you refuse permission to speak 반말? Yes, you can. You don't have to say yes, but you probably wouldn't do that, because if someone asks you who's older, do you want to speak 반말? I'll tell you how to ask that a little bit later. Do you want to speak 반말? You would feel kind of awkward saying no because they're in a higher social position than you, but you could still say no. You could say, I don't feel comfortable to do that. When we're all talking about a person that requires high level of respect, particle used with the person has to be higher. Can we use casual speech? No. the type of speech you use is the type of speech general, like 반말 or 존댓말. That's depending on the person who you're talking with currently, not the person you're talking about. The person who you're talking about will change whether you use honorific or humble speech. And we'll talk about those too, but those are different. The type of way you speak depends on who you're talking with. And then there are pieces of those parts of speech, like within casual speech and within polite speech, which have other aspects to them. Like, what if you're talking with a friend, but you're talking about your boss, right? Like those types of things. Then there is different way that you'll speak about that person, but the general ending that you'll use at the end of your verb, like whether you're going to use yo or not, that depends on just who you're talking with, not who you're talking about. Okay, so what is 반말 again? What does that mean if you're speaking in 반말? Well, one thing is you're not using the yo form. So no yo, no yo. You do not use the yo form. If you see something and it ends in a yo, just cut that ending out completely. Other things that will change is instead of 저는, they do not say that. Instead, you can use 나. So if you wanted to say I like it, normally we would say 저는 좋아해요. This is the regular conjugation, the yo form conjugation. So this is polite. We have 저는 좋아해요. I like it. As for me, I like it. If you want to make this in casual speech, so you're talking with your close friend, you change 저 to 나, but then you also have to change the ending. So now the yo's gone. 나는 좋아해. Now you have a casual speech sentence. Don't mix those. If you have 저는, right? I've seen this a lot. People mix these. It's very common. It's extremely common. In fact, you might do it even if you think you don't do it. So make sure if you're using 저는 that you have a yo at the end. 좋아해요. And if you have 나는, do not use a yo at the end. So there is no yo. They use 나 instead of 저. And there are some other aspects to it. If you're talking you're talking in 반말, there's also different grammar you might use. So the typical grammar would be to say, for example, to say with would be 와 or 과. Okay, with. Like 그 사람, with that person. 그 사람과. So it's 과 after a consonant and 와 after a vowel. But if you're not speaking formally, if you're just speaking casually, they don't do that. Instead, you'll use 이랑. And it's 이랑 after a consonant or just 랑 after a vowel. So you would say 그 사람이랑 instead of 그 사람과. The meaning is the exact same, but this is used in whenever you're not speaking really politely. Let's check this chat. Just want to see the world burn. Someone's asking that. Skipping particles? Kind of. If you're throwing out all of your particles, it can sound like you're purposely trying to be slangy, like you're purposely trying to speak casually. To an extent, it's allowed within polite speech. You can also remove particles. But if you're just throwing away all your particles, but you're still trying to speak politely otherwise, it sounds a little bit less formal. It sounds a little bit less polite, regardless of how else you're speaking. So removing a lot of your particles is not a requirement to speak 반말, but it's kind of a feature, so you'll see it a lot. People will remove a lot of particles, especially like the object marker. This one, a lot of people will remove the object marker or other particles when they're speaking, but it's not a requirement, so you don't have to necessarily do that. Another thing is instead of 에게, which means to, like to a person, 그 사람에게, to that person, 선물 줬어요. I gave a present. 그 사람에게 선물, I'll just write 선물 줬어요. 줬어요. Hopefully you can still see that down there. I think you can. Yeah. 그 사람에게 선물 줬어요. I gave a present to that person. Koreans would say 한테. 한테. which is just pronounced as ante. They don't really make the H, that's the hiat, this letter. It's not that strong. But 그 사람한테 is the exact same meaning as 그 사람에게. But if you're speaking casually, they would never say 와, 과, or 에게. Never. They would only use these other versions of it, which sound a little more smooth. Okay, if you're a beginner, just close your ears for a second. This doesn't mean you have to use these when you're speaking casually. I mean, this doesn't mean sorry, let me rephrase that. This doesn't mean that if you see these, it's casual. These are also used in regular speech too, but they're not formal. I'll just say that. These two grammar forms are not formal at all, and you should never use them in essays or speeches or speaking with your boss, but they are okay in most regular situations, even if it's not casual. It's just not formal anymore. Just know that. These are not formal, but they're only used, well, they're always used in casual, but just their use doesn't mean that you're speaking casually. So someone can still be polite. Someone could say 좋아해요 or 저, like 저 and 요, and they can still be speaking polite, but they can also use these grammar forms too. But if they're trying to speak extra polite, they would not. If they're trying to write something formal, they would not. Okay, now beginners, you can listen again. All right, but there are some things you need to avoid in 반말. So like I said, if you're talking with a close friend, then you might think, oh, I can use 반말 because we're close friends. I mean, he's a little older than me, but I can still use 반말. So I'm going to say, this marker's dead. Okay, so I'm just going to say no to you, right? For you, right? You've learned that before. No. They use it in dramas. They use it in songs. You've heard it, read it on websites. You probably studied it. You probably even use it yourself. Some of you do. Okay. This is actually lower than 반말. This is actually specifically talking down to someone a little bit more. It's a little bit lower. So maybe you have 반말, and 반말 is like you're talking down to someone like, let's do a little bit less. So here's regular 반말. So this is you, and you're talking a little bit down to someone else. You know, you're trying to be friendly. You know, it's your close friend, and you guys can kind of talk down to each other. No is actually like you're talking down to them. Like, this person is a little bit lower than me. Or I really don't care to be polite to this person at all. This isn't saying that no is always rude, but if you're not really close with that person, and I mean like you're like a really good friend, do not use no. Do not use no to your parents. You can use no to, you know, your boyfriend or girlfriend. You can use no to your sibling. You can use no to close friend, like really close friend, and if the friend is younger than you. So this is where it doesn't matter how close you guys are. Doesn't matter how close of a friend you are. If they're younger than you, if they're not younger than you, do not use this. So I would say avoid it because it's often mistaken that this is part of 반말. Like people think, oh, we're speaking 반말, right? Oh, 나는 좋아해. Oh, he gave me permission to speak 반말, so we're speaking casually together. Do not use this. Even if you got permission to speak casually, do not use this unless boyfriend, girlfriend, a sibling, or a really close friend who's also younger than you, or, you know, same age or younger, I'll say. It's dangerous in other situations. It really sounds like you're talking down to them, or like I said, what it presents is that you do not care about being polite to them at all. So this is like the lowest form of 반말. And there are ways to use 반말 that don't sound as rude, that sound just kind of playful. And there are ways to use 반말 that can sound a little bit harsher and more straightforward. And this is one of those. This is a little bit lower. Another thing, instead of using, you know, 이다, normally for to be becomes 이에요 or 예요. So 이에요 after a consonant and 예요 after a vowel. In casual speech, and I'm sure you've seen this, it'll become 이야, which is 이야 after a consonant or just 야 after a vowel. Sorry, hopefully this is legible. So you might have seen this, 이야, like, let me write something down here. 나는 미국인, which means American. 나는 미국인이야. Right? You've probably seen this type of ending, yeah, or just ya, if it's after a thing. This is how you normally do the conjugation for panmar. So you see the ya here. So people think, oh, the ya is part of panmar. It's okay. Okay, normally using this ya ending is okay. If you're speaking panmar, you can say 나는 미국인이야. I'm an American, right? You're speaking casually. It's okay. But you cannot say ya by itself. Ya by itself is enough, just like no. This is a lower form of panmar that can sound rude. So you might think that, oh, it has ya. It's the same thing, just like saying ya. It's not. Ya is, hold on, I got an email. Let me check. Oh, that's just a thing. Okay. Let me check the comments for a second. That is good to know. I've heard it in dramas. Yes, if you shout out to someone, and I'm sure you've seen this in a drama if you watch dramas. Yeah, yeah, hey, hey. This is also talking down. This is 100% talking down to somebody. Just like no, yeah, no, hey, you. It's really rude. And like with your really close friends, you sure. Feel free to use this with your really close friends who are the same age as you. Say, yeah, like, hey, what are you doing? You know, your boyfriend, girlfriend, that's okay. Do not use this when speaking regular casual speech. So if you're talking with someone who's a little older than you and you're speaking casually, don't say, yeah. It sounds like you're talking down to them. Even though normally using panmar is kind of talking down to them anyway, this sounds really like, okay, now I think I'm at a higher position than you. And that can sound rude among friends because you feel, as friends, you feel like, oh, you know, we're equal, right? We can just talk casually. We can say whatever we want. Yeah, and make jokes. But this actually puts yourself kind of above that person. So if they're not someone who would take that joke well, don't use it. I just wanted to say that this is different. Although it looks the same, 나는 미국인이야. This is actually just the 이다, the to be grammar, which normally becomes 이에요 or 예요 in the yo form. This is that same verb in 반말, which becomes 이야 or 야 after a vowel. Okay. One more thing to point out. So like I said, don't use ya, don't use no. Let's see, name. Oh, also when you're calling out to somebody, so you have a friend named Charsu. I don't care, I'm putting Charsu's name in red. Die, Charsu. Okay, so you're not supposed to write people's names in red. Okay, if you call out to someone's name and call out someone's name, you're like, hey, Charsu. You would say Charsu ya. Or if their name ends in a consonant, you would say ya. If their name ends in a vowel, it's their name ends in a vowel, it's iya. Hijiniya. Oh, sorry, I got that wrong. Hijina. What am I doing? I'm not fit to be a Korean teacher anymore. Hijina. I was getting mixed up looking at this. Okay, Charsuya if you're calling it to someone, or Hijina if their name ends in a vowel. Okay, you heard, I said it right. I just wrote it wrong. Their name ends in a vowel. So like Charsu, then you attach ya. If their name ends in a consonant, so Hijin, it's ah. This is when you're calling out to someone. So you have friend Charsu, you say Charsu ya, hey Charsu, Hijina, hey Hijin. You can't just yell out Charsu, Hijin. You can't just yell out their name. You have to attach something to their name if you're going to yell it out. Yelling their name out like this is also on a similar level as saying ya and a similar level as saying no. So don't do it. Be careful about that. Charsu is a textbook name. Yeah, Charsu is like Bobby and Sally in textbook. I just like the name. Okay. So if you hear this too, ya or ah at the end of a name, this is also kind of a lower form of 반말. So it's kind of like you're talking down to that person when you're calling out their name. Okay, so that's all about 반말. So let's go on to 존댓말. I don't think I'm going to be able to cover everything today because we've already gone 1 hour and I've only covered an overview and 반말. I haven't yet covered the other stuff I want to do yet. So yes, my attempts to clean my whiteboard eraser failed, but fortunately I just bought a new one. Let me just check here, make sure it's still going okay. let's see. Thanks, okay, Billy, in depth of that. Tarsu shi. Yes. So next we're going to be talking about what you should use. 존댓말. 존댓말. 존댓말 means polite speech, or you might see it translated as honorific speech, but it's more just like polite speech. This is the general way that you should speak with Koreans in every other situation. And this has many levels in it. Within 존댓말, just like I said, 반말 had a couple different levels, and I briefly talked about regular 반말 and then lower 반말, right? When I mentioned some things you shouldn't do. 존댓말 also has levels in it. It has a generic 존댓말, which you'll hear used all the time, which is 요, right? The 요 form. So like, 좋아해요. This is just the general 요 form. This is one level. Another level would be 니다. So that would be something like 좋아합니다. 사랑합니다. Right? Another level, and this is different. This isn't just going up and making it more polite. They're just different situations when you use it. Another one is honorifics, which are 높임말. And I'll talk about those next, actually. This would be using 시 or using like 세요, like 안녕하세요. And this is a piece of 존댓말, a piece of it. It's not just getting more polite or more polite. This is a different piece of it. And we'll talk about that next, actually. But first, just these two. So when you're speaking polite, I just wrote all over my finger. Speaking politely, like with 존댓말, is the safest way to speak Korean. And if you use 존댓말, you're not going to accidentally be rude. You're not going to have to worry about being rude. As I mentioned earlier, the worst thing that would happen if you use 존댓말 when you're not supposed to is your best friend will tell you, stop speaking to me in 존댓말. It sounds awkward. That's the worst thing that's going to happen to you. The worst thing that would happen if you use 반말 when you're not supposed to is you get fired, the person doesn't like you, they tell you to leave, you start a fight. It kind of sounds, like I said, you're talking down to someone. At least 존댓말 assumes you're talking a little bit up to them. Whether you're talking really up to them, or kind of up to them, or just a little bit, 존댓말 is polite, and you will get away with pretty much any situation if you stick to using 존댓말. So, one thing about that you'll probably hear often is putting 시 after a person's name. So I mentioned for 반말, you might hear like 철수 야 or 희진 아, ya or at the end of a name, if you're speaking really low, 반말. But if you're speaking 존댓말, you cannot use that. If you want to call out to someone, you have to use a title to call out to them. So you might, if they're your teacher, you could call out to your teacher with 선생님, which literally just means teacher. If they're your boss, you can call out to them with 사장님, which means boss. You know, you can use a title. And another title that you could use is 씨, which just means Mr. or Mrs. I got to start a Go Billy blue pen donation fund. I'll get one before the next stream. I'll do it. It's just too bad today. Let me check here. Struggle is real with Billy and his markers. Yeah, I'll fix it. Don't worry. The whole reason I bought this whiteboard was for these live streams anyway. So I think I can improve my $1 marker. Put the blue in the loo. Yes, Billy 선생님, as Mel X Legacy wrote. So if you wanted to say teacher, you can say 선생님. If you wanted to be specific, say you see a bunch of teachers walking, and I want Billy. Hey, Billy. In English, you would say, oh, Mr. Billy, Mr. Go or whatever. But in Korean, you would say 빌리 선생님. So it's the person's name, then the title. And if you don't have a title, you can just use 씨, which means, like I said, Mr. or Mrs. So if your friend, not your friend, acquaintance, you know this guy named 철수, and you want to call out to him, 철수 씨, 철수 씨, Mr. 철수, 영희 씨, Mrs. 영희. So what it literally means. You can't just say 철수, 영희. That doesn't make sense. You would have to call out to them with something, and you would use a title. So there's many titles in Korean. Other things that are titles that you might not think were titles would be something like Oppa. Oppa is an older brother or an older male friend to a female. So you'd say 오빠, 오빠, or 형, 형, if you're a guy, you know, 누나, 언니, depending on how, you know, the genders. This is also a title. So Koreans will use titles to call out to each other, and this is a feature of 존댓말. Also, you could say 오빠, you know, if you're speaking 반말 too, but the feature of 존댓말 is you have to use a title when you call out to someone. Okay, I'll just leave this part so you can kind of get the idea that you use a title here. So if you don't know what a title, if you don't know what title, at least do she, so you're not being rude. Another thing is that you'll use the 요 form. Another feature about 존댓말, and the nice thing is actually 존댓말 is pretty easy to cover. It's pretty easy to cover, despite being the largest of them. Another thing is to make sure that you're using 저 and not 요. I mean, sorry, yes, 요, and not 나. So don't use 나. If you use 나, it's automatically not 존댓말. As I mentioned with 반말, when you speak 반말, you should use 나 and not use 요. When you're speaking 존댓말, it's the exact opposite. You need to use 저 and you need to use 요. So you have, if you're making a sentence and you see 나 in your sentence, it's automatically 반말. It doesn't matter what else you're doing to it. It's 반말. With a few exceptions, but it's 반말. Or plain form, it's not going to be polite. I'll just say that. It's not 존댓말 if you have a 나 in it. And it's not 존댓말 if you're not using a 요 ending or a 니다 ending or something like that. So if you're wondering, is my sentence polite? Did you put 나 in there? It's not automatically. Just change it to 저. Okay, beginners, you can close your ears for a little bit. I'm going to say something to people who are intermediate. 저 is actually not a regular polite word. What it actually is, it's a humble noun. It shows humility. So you're talking up to somebody by actually lowering yourself. 저 is kind of like saying little old me, you know, talking up to you. When you say 저, I am being humble. I am showing my humility by using 저. And 나 is just, we are on a level playing field, or I'm talking down to you. That's what 나 is. 나, I am me. Hear me roar. 나. That's 나. And 저, like I said, is kind of talking up like this. So it's not technically just this, it's not the exact same as just using the 요 form. It's a slightly different style of speech, which is called humble. If you want to know details about that, that's where you can also get the word 저희 instead of 우리 for us. Normally, Koreans would say 우리, which means us or we. But if you're speaking humbly, which we'll talk about humble speech a little bit, you'd use 저희, which is the same thing. Okay, so now you can open your ears again for beginners. And if you listen to that anyway, just, you don't have to write it down if you're a beginner, is what I'm trying to say, because it's not necessary to know. But I thought it's really interesting. Okay, so use these forms. We're not going to talk about how to conjugate the 요 form, but I do have a video about that, which really doesn't go into much detail. Honestly, I watched it again. It's not that great. But you can find how to conjugate the 요 form on the internet, as well as the 니다 form. If you're not sure, should I use 니다 or 요? I would say if you're in a business situation or a really formal situation, or you just want to be really polite. I do have a video about how to conjugate the 요 form, and the 요 form is very easy to conjugate. The 니다 form. The 니다 form is very easy to conjugate. I have a video about it you can find on my channel to watch. It's really short and easy to conjugate it. If you're in a business or formal situation, end your sentences with the 니다 form. That's it. Otherwise, use the 요 form. So 요 form is what you'll hear all the time. Some sort of 요 form. Maybe it'll be the plain 요 form. Maybe it'll be like 하네요, like the verb endings that we learned in the first live stream. But use those. So that's pretty much all there is to it. 존댓말. Use the 요 form. Use 저. And as I mentioned before, when I had beginners plug their ears, you can still use the other grammar forms, 이랑 and 한테. As long as you're not in a business or formal situation, you can still use these. They're still okay to use along with 요 form. They're not going to be rude. I just said they're not formal. They will not sound extra polite, but they don't necessarily sound rude. So you're okay to use these as well. All right. One thing I also wanted to mention before I go on too far is how do you get to where you can speak more casually with someone? So let's say you're the older person, and there's actually conflicting information on this. So some people will say the older person doesn't ask, the younger person asks. Other people say the younger person asks, but just play it by ear. If you're talking with somebody and you feel like you're getting close to them, so you feel like you're becoming a good friend with them, but you're still speaking 존댓말, you're still speaking very politely, but you want to relax, you want to just use slang, you want to swear, you want to say nah, you want to stop adding the yo at the end, right? You want to get more comfortable together. There's a way to ask that. There's a few ways to ask that. One way is you can say, if you're in a group, 우리 말, which is our words, 놓을까? 우리 말 놓을까? 놓다 means to put down or lower. So should we lower our speech? So if you're speaking 존댓말 to someone, 놓을까 is just should. Shall we? Shall we? So if you're speaking really politely and you've known someone for a while and now you feel like, oh, I want to speak casually with them. I really want to speak casually with this person because I feel like we're closer now. Then you can ask something like this. 우리 말 놓을까? Should we lower our speech? Should we speak casually? And if they say yes, they might say yes if they feel pressure to. So you have to notice the situation, pay attention to that situation, and don't ask if you think they would probably say no. Jeremy from Motivate Korean says the group voice, which is a good explanation. Oh, yeah, group voice. So how are you guys talking? So 우리 말, our words, should we lower our words? Should we just speak casually to each other? And if the other person's like, oh, really? I would love that. Oh, that's so nice. Or thank you. Then yeah, now suddenly you can switch and use 반말 to each other. And you might joke about that. You're like, oh, it feels so weird. I'm speaking casually to you. Oh, I really wanted to do this, right? And when you speak casually with someone, you can feel more of that familiarity with each other. Because when you use Korean, you will naturally start to you'll actually feel the difference between somebody speaking to you casually and somebody speaking to you politely, using 존댓말 or using 반말. You'll feel that. It feels different. This is not something that only Koreans understand or only Koreans can feel. Just by using it, you'll understand how it feels different. So I'm not making this up. You will feel it when you're using this. That doesn't mean you don't have to study it though, but you will feel a difference when somebody speaks to you with 반말 and when someone speaks to you with 존댓말 and when you speak with someone else. So this is one way you can do it. Another way you can do it is, there's several ways you can ask. 말 편하게 해도 될까요? Is another one. There's a few others. 편하게 just means comfortably. It's an adverb. And then 해도, even if we do. 될까요? Would it be okay? Would it be okay? 말, our words. Would it be okay if we do, here it's speak, is it okay even if we comfortably speak? 말 하다 means to speak. So 말 편하게 하다 means to speak comfortably. So 말 편하게 해도, even if we speak comfortably, 될까요? Would it be okay? So is it okay for us to speak comfortably? And by comfortably it means lowering our speech. Because using 반말 is actually easier than using 존댓말 because you don't have to worry so much about what words you're using or whether you're including all your particles or whether you accidentally don't attach a polite, ending to the sentence. It's much more easier to speak and it feels more familiar. So it feels more friendly. You can also ask like this, 말 편하게 해도 될까요? And notice this is still polite. This is more of an asking like, hey, I'm still speaking to you, yo, right now. I'm really just asking, do you want to speak more politely? Right? So this is another way you can ask that. I'm going to look at the chat just for a minute. I've actually had to tell people off for speaking 반말. Yes. I wish I got a quarter every time I had to tell someone that too. So if someone starts speaking, and you'll get that a lot. Some Koreans, especially younger Koreans, if you meet them they might, right off the bat, they might start speaking casually to you, which is, like I said, it's a social no-no. It's a faux pas. You should not ever speak casually when you're first meeting a person, because as I explained, you have no relationship with them. And that's one of the things that's important when you're determining how you should talk with someone. And if you're talking 반말, casual speech, notice that you need to have a strong relationship with them. So if you're meeting someone for the first time, okay, I'll mention this. I figure you probably picked this up when I was first talking about it, but 반가워요, it's nice, is a casual way, it's a friendly way to say nice to meet you. If you're meeting someone in a formal situation, you're meeting your teacher, you're meeting someone older, like an older client, 반갑습니다, nice to meet you. 만나서 반갑습니다, or just 반갑습니다, nice to meet you. If you're meeting someone in a regular situation, they don't seem like, they're not a boss, they're not someone really higher than you, but you still want to be polite, 반가워요, nice to meet you. But you might hear people say on the first meeting, the first time you meet someone, you might hear a Korean say this to you because you're not a Korean. They would never say this to another Korean when they're meeting someone. Koreans would never use this to another Korean because it's rude. They have no close relationship with you, but they might feel like, oh, they're foreigners, so they don't understand politeness levels. They don't care. I just want to be friendly with them right off the bat. 반가워, nice to meet you. This is very casual. This would be what you can say, like I said, to a small kid when you meet a small kid for the first time, or an animal, like, you're shaking someone's pet dog's hand. You say, oh, 반가워, nice to meet you, doggy. Or I might say this in my videos because, Billy is everyone's friend, but in real situations, Koreans would never say this because it would be very rude. So you can't use casual speech when you're meeting someone for the first time, except, of course, for the situations I mentioned, like a small child or a dog, like an animal. That's okay. Other than that, you do not use casual speech when you're meeting someone for the first time. You cannot, after you talk with someone, you can't say, oh, 나는 blah, 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 blah. It doesn't matter if they're your same age and younger. Like I said, age is important, but other factors can be more important. Other factors can go over that. They can trump that. So your relationship, you have no relationship with this person. You cannot speak na. You cannot drop the yu at the end. And this is very important because honestly, politeness levels are the most commonly messed up topic in all of Korean, hands down, above anything else. This is the most messed up topic in Korean. And by that, I mean the topic most people, not the most messed up topic, the topic most learners mess up. So if you only learn one thing from today's live stream, use 존댓말. Do not use 반말 unless you already know you can use 반말. So if you're sure about it, like, oh, I listened to this stream and I'm good, I got it. I can use 반말 in this situation where I'm using it. Fine. Other than that, do not think I want to use 반말 because I want to speak casually with them. It'll be rude. And I often get emails, fan emails written in 반말 to me. Now, I'm not offended by that because I understand they're learning. So I want them to get better. But it's very, very common mistake. So be careful about that. Watch your mouth or something. What if the Korean asks to speak casual right off the bat? That's up to you if you want to. If you want to speak casual right off the bat, that's up to you. So there could be a Korean who meets you the first time and says, oh, can we just speak casually? I mean, for me, I would feel awkward about that because I would feel like it means that they want to talk down to me. Like they don't see me as someone to respect, right? Because I don't know them. Like I want to respect them. I want to know about them before I let them just be casual with me. I'll put it to you this way. Okay, you're walking down the street, right? And some guy suddenly walks up to you like he's going to sell you something, right? He says, hey man, how's it going? Okay, imagine this situation. You're walking down the street by yourself. Someone walks up to you. Hey man, how's it going? What's up? How you doing? Would you immediately want to be friends with that person? Maybe. Probably not, because you don't know them. You don't trust them. Why is this stranger suddenly trying to be friendly with me? Why are they just walking up to, they're obviously trying to sell me something, right? Maybe it's just a very friendly person. He's going to invite you to play volleyball with his friends. Like, hey, yeah, me and friends are just playing volleyball. Cool. Yeah, you want to play? Sure. I'm cool with that. Let's speak 반말, right? So now I've got this guy who I just met and now we're speaking 반말. Sure. 99% of the time, though, it's just somebody who wants to sell you something or someone who wants to get you to trust them for some strange reason, right? Maybe it's a cult. There's a lot of them in Korea. If somebody suddenly walks up to you and starts being friendly with you in Korea, it's probably a cult. So be careful. And there are a lot of them. So it's kind of like that. Would you want to talk casually with someone right off the bat who you don't know? And using 반말 is kind of that feeling. You think, I don't know this person. Why would they be speaking so casually with me? Like, I don't know if he wants to steal my money or convert me to his religion or something like that. And if that gives you a perspective on when it's okay to use 반말. So not when you're meeting someone for the first time. However, imagine if you're talking to a kid. You could just say, hey, what's up, bro? Give me a high five, right? They don't know you. They don't care. You're fine with it. They're fine with it. Perfectly acceptable. Or a dog. Hey, dog, shake their hand, rub the dog's, ears or whatever, make the ears like fluff up. It's totally fine because or a little kid. But not to someone you're meeting for the first time. They would feel awkward about it. Even if you think it's okay, you're thinking, oh, I just want to be friendly. They would feel really awkward. Like, I don't know you. Why are you speaking to me so casually? So if you write, oh, new member. Hey, welcome, Loreny Bastos. I'm probably saying that wrong. Loreny, welcome to the membership. Also check out the community tab. There's a Discord link in it right now. So does that help kind of clarify why you shouldn't use 반말 when you're meeting someone for the first time? They approached me in Korea. Yeah, you can get that. There's a comment thread. I didn't see what it said. I'm curious now. Billy is overstating the rudeness of Koreans speaking casually to foreigners. No, the reason is they think they're being polite because they think they're being extra accommodating. And this is, when I say they, I don't mean most Koreans. This is a very small subset of Koreans. Very few Koreans will start speaking to you in casual speech. The majority will know that it's kind of rude. But some Koreans might feel like, I want to be really friendly with this person, and they're from a different culture. I know in American culture, they don't have politeness levels, right? They know that. They know English doesn't have politeness levels. They don't care about this. I want to be friendly with this person. It'll be more fun with me. So like, hey, what's up? How's it going? That's what they want. They want that relationship right off the bat. And they don't know that it's being rude because if you understand that, it kind of feels rude. Like, why? I don't know you yet, right? But it's not that they're trying to be really rude. They're trying to be really friendly. It's the opposite. They're trying to be really friendly, but they would not do that with a Korean. If they were to suddenly do that to a Korean, it would be very rude. That's what I'm trying to say. So I hope it's not confusing. In fact, it's them who asked me to speak casually, not the us. That's right. Yes. And so it's up to you. If you would feel okay with that situation, then yeah, go ahead. You'll probably have fun with it. But I'm just letting you know that they wouldn't do it to a Korean. So you might have to think about, why is this person being so casual with me? Do they want something? Sometimes yes. Sometimes they just want to be your friend right away. But they wouldn't do that with a Korean. It's kind of what I'm trying to make sure that you get. That it's not natural and that you shouldn't do that. Because you might see someone else talk to you like that when you first meet them. And you might think, oh, that's okay because I saw a Korean. My Korean friend did that. That's how he met me. But that doesn't mean it's okay for you to do that. It's just in that situation, the Korean thinks that because you're not a Korean, that it's okay. But you, as not a Korean, cannot then do that to another Korean because they will think it's very awkward. Does your actual tone matter at all? Yes, it does. Yeah, your tone matters too. And I'm not going to go into detail about this because of time. I only have like 30 minutes left to cover. Well, what am I doing next? To cover all the things 높임말. But yes, your tone matters too. Sometimes, your tone matters a lot and your expression and everything like that matters. You can sometimes get away with mixing in some casual Korean when you're speaking polite, in a polite situation. But I'm not going to tell you how to do that because it's you have to read the situation. Like, for example, if you're meeting with an older friend and you kind of know him pretty well, but you're not using casual Korean with him, you're just using polite Korean. Every once in a while, you can if you want to say something a little bit stronger, like, oh, I really want to emphasize this, like, oh, I hate that, or like, I'm really fired up right now. You can sometimes mix in some casual Korean into there, especially if you're quoting someone or you feel a little bit more loose and you feel a little more friendly at this right now, but it's not something you can just freely mix. It's a little bit more complicated than that. So I would say do not mix. And then when you learn how to mix, you can come back and tell me, Billy, you're wrong. But I would say do not mix. But you might hear mixing sometimes. I would just be careful about doing that. If I have time, I'd like to talk about one instance of mixing in today's live stream, but we'll see if I can get through that. So this is honorifics. This is a piece of 존댓말. So this is not a separate form of speaking. Like I said, there's only three main, at least that I would say, three main politeness levels in Korean: 반말, 존댓말, and plain form. So plain form, we'll talk about that next also. But there's two types of pieces. There's two other pieces in 존댓말. And one of them is 높임말, and the other one is 낮춤말, which is a humble speech. These are not, like I said, these are not separate speech levels. These are parts, these are within 존댓말. So you could be speaking 존댓말 and you can add in honorifics, or you can even be speaking 반말 and you could be adding in honorifics or humble speech. This is feature of speaking that's kind of related to 존댓말, but it's not a separate speech level. Let me explain. I actually have videos on these on my channel. Honorific, if you search honorifics on my YouTube channel, you'll find I have two videos. One video is all about honorifics and one video is all about humble speech on my channel. They don't have very many views because they're honestly an intermediate topic, but they're very important. So this would be something like, if you're talking about someone who has a higher level than you, and you're talking to someone who's a similar level as you, or maybe they're lower level, or maybe they're higher level. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you're talking to. Whoever you're talking about is a higher level than you, much higher level than you. Then you would use honorifics when describing that person or talking about that person, even though your verb ending is still 반말 or 존댓말, whatever, right? So beginners, you don't need to learn this. Like I said, this is more of a complex thing. But like say you're talking about your teacher. Teacher's always good at example. So you can have 선생님이, you could just say 누구예요, right? 누구예요. Well, 예요 is how it's spelled. So 선생님이 누구예요. Sorry, this is not part of that right now. So who is the teacher? But what if the teacher, you want to be honorific toward the teacher? The teacher is definitely up here. If you're asking this sentence, who's the teacher, to someone who's at a similar level than you, like maybe it's an acquaintance, you could use 누구예요. Or if you're asking it to a friend, close friend or someone lower, you say 누구야, right? Who is the teacher? This is 반말, and the 누구예요 would be 존댓말. But you want to be polite to the teacher, even though you're not being extra polite to your friend. So you would use honorifics. And I have, like I said, I have a video that goes into detail about honorifics and humble speech, which I recommend watching if you're at the level where this is starting to make sense. 선생님이 누구셔. So you have a honorific ending that's in 반말. It's in casual speech. So you're not talking up to the friend. You're only talking up about the teacher, but the person you're talking with stays the same, which is why I said this isn't really a separate way of speaking. It's an element of speaking Korean. But like I said, we're not going to go into detail about this because it's a huge topic that would take all of 2 hours to cover. But if you would like, next week or the next week, I'll put this as a voting option. So I could cover honorifics and humble speech, but it would definitely take a full 2 hours to cover this. And I would want to do it in detail. Right now, I'm just going to do quick detail. So that would be changing the verb ending. You remove the ta at the end of a verb. You remove the ta and you replace it with she, and then you conjugate it. So that would become, in the yo form, that would become 세요. Without the yo, it would become 셔. 십니다 if you're doing the 니다 form. And this is how you would conjugate it. Also, some verbs will change. So the regular verb 있다, to exist, when you're talking about a teacher, like a teacher is in his room right now, you wouldn't use 있어요 in the room, you would use 계세요, is in the room. It's the exact same meaning as this, but it's an honorific for talking about the teacher. So if you were talking with your friend about a teacher, so you're using 반말, 계셔, right? Like that. This is kind of how it works. And there's other verbs that will change. There's about, let me think. There's about four or five verbs that change. This isn't a ton of new stuff you have to learn, really. It's not like you have to learn all new verbs for every verb. There's like 4 or 5 verbs that you have to learn. And then a couple different verb endings. So anyway, we're not going to be going into detail. Just kind of illustrating that this is not a different way of speaking necessarily. It's not like, they say, I said there's 3 different main levels of speaking to someone. This is not related to how you speak to someone. This is how you speak about someone. The other one is 낮춤말, which I mentioned. 낮춤말 is humble speech. And again, I have a video about this as well. If you search humble or honorifics, you'll find 2 videos on my channel. Check those out. 낮춤말 is speaking about, again, about a person by putting yourself down. So honorifics would be saying, oh, this person's higher than me, so I'm going to speak politely about them. Humble speech is saying, this person's higher than me, so I'm going to speak down about myself. I'm going to lower myself, lower my own status in the way that I talk. And humble speech, there's only 2 verbs you have to learn. 2. Count them. 2 verbs you have to learn. And like a couple nouns, you can use 저. 저 is a piece of humble speech. So that's another aspect of how you would speak politely about someone. And we're not going to go into this again because I've already made a video that goes into it better than I could do today. I just kind of wanted to point out that it's there because I figured someone's going to say, what about honorifics? What about humble? Well, that's what it is. And then plain form. So the last... Yeah, feel free to take a break and you can watch this again later. I'll actually let me check, see how we're going. Okay, I was just going to check how many people are here. I was wondering if we lost everyone when I started talking about honorific speech and humble speech. I purposely kept that brief because I know that I already have videos about it if you want. And like I said, that's also more of an intermediate topic. The final thing is plain form. Now, I mentioned that 반말 is if you're talking, slightly down to someone, and 존댓말, and any level of that, whether it's really down or kind of down. 존댓말 is if you're speaking kind of at least a little bit up to them, so you're being polite. Plain form is when you're talking with someone who you don't know. You don't know if they're higher than you, you don't know if they're lower than you, or your same level. You have no clue the person you're talking with. An example of when this would be used, and there's lots of examples when this is used, is newspaper. Newspaper. I swear I must be dyslexic or something. Okay, newspapers, articles, essays. If you write in a journal to yourself, a diary, I guess. If you're writing in a journal, you're writing to yourself, or you don't know who's reading it. Any written form of Korean, if it stays written and it's not someone speaking something, we'll use the plain form because there is no audience. There's no intended audience. If you have an intended audience, you cannot use the plain form. You cannot speak to somebody out loud using the plain form. It sounds rude. You have to have no audience for this to be polite. Something else that's a part of the plain form that you've probably seen is 당신. There's a reason why I say don't say 당신 when you want to say you. And I have a video about how to say you in Korean. If you search my channel, do not say 당신. 당신 is an element of plain form. This means you do not know the person at all. You have zero information about the person. You don't know what they look like. You don't know how tall they are. You don't know what their name is, how old they are, their relationship to you, nothing. 당신 is okay for that. So if you're making a big poster, like you're making a big advertisement and it's going to be next to the freeway, 당신이 행복하세요? Are you happy? They don't know who this you is. So you'll see 당신 used in advertising. You'll see 당신 used in newspapers and articles or journals or stuff like that from time to time because it means you do not know who the other person is. So don't use 당신. It's an element. It's used in plain form and a couple other situations, but not regular Korean for saying you. Another thing is this would be for announcements. This can be used in speech in one situation. Journers? Did I say journers? Oh no. I didn't even say dyslexic correct. I said like dyslexic. Okay. Announcements. This would be 반말. So if you hear someone say something using plain form, I'll tell you how to make the plain form. It's very easy. If you hear someone say if you hear someone say something out loud and they're using the plain form, it is a piece of 반말. It is a type of 반말 here. So they might say, "Oh, 춥다," really loud, to you, directed to you, not to themselves. As I mentioned, it's okay to use casual Korean to yourself, but directed at someone else. 나 간다, I'm going. If you say something like that, 이거 먹는다, 내가 먹는다, I'm going to eat this, that's an announcement. That's like you're announcing it to other people, and that's 반말. So you can only do that with close friends. Okay, so how to make the plain form? You take a verb stem and you attach, which is you take the 다 and you remove the 다 at the end, right? So that's easy enough. You attach 은다 if it ends in a vowel, and you attach 는다 if it ends in a consonant. So 가다, to go, becomes 간다. 먹다, can you see? Let me check if you can even see down there. You can kind of see that. Okay, I'll keep going with that. 먹다, which means to eat, becomes, because it ends in a consonant, 먹는다. And if a verb ends in a lir, in this letter, you remove it. That's it. So 살다, to live, just becomes 산다. That's it. That's the only thing you have to do to make plain form. It's really easy. Also, if you're using plain form, you cannot use 저. If you see 저, it is not plain form. It is wrong. So you will never have a sentence, 저는 먹는다, 저는 간다. That's weird and awkward. The reason is, as I said, 저 is a piece of humble speech. It's actually kind of, you're lowering yourself to the person who you're talking with. So you're putting yourself at a lower level. Regardless of what your level is, you're lowering yourself a little bit. There is no audience in plain form. You cannot do that. You're lowering yourself to an imaginary person. You don't know who you're talking with. Do not use 저 with plain form. Only use 나. It will not be rude if you write something and you use 나 with plain form. If you are writing an essay, if you're writing a newspaper article, or you're writing in your journal, or you're making an announcement to your friends, although that's 반말 anyway. But if you're doing any writing like this, use 나. It is not rude in this situation. It is the only appropriate word to use for I, because you don't know who the person you're talking with. So 나 is just, like I said, straightforward. Like, this is me. I am me. You know, I'm not talking down to you so much. I'm just definitely not talking up to you. 나 with plain form. And 저 with 존댓말, with polite Korean. Different types of yeah, I could do a live class about the different types of speech, but that's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm just not going into how to conjugate them. Hashtag buy Billy's book. Yes, if you want to learn about these topics that I'm teaching today, I have videos about them all individually, but I don't have a summary about them, which is why I'm doing today's live class. Okay, so that's the plain form. That's pretty much all you have to do. Like I said, again, the audience, this is when the audience is unknown. So if you know who the audience is, if you know who's reading it exactly, do not write in plain form. So if you're writing a note to your boss, do not use plain form. Use the regular polite Korean you would use if you were speaking. If you're writing a report for your company, you know, you're writing down notes, just use the plain form because you don't know who's going to be reading that. It will not be rude. Trust me, it is not rude to use polite form, to use plain form when you don't know who you're going to be directing it to. And again, make sure you use na with the plain form, because using cho is very common, but that's wrong. Let me read the notes, read your comments for just a minute. Plain form of social media, that's up to you. If you are directing your social media post at nobody, then you can use plain form. But typically when you're writing a social media post, you're directing it at someone. Or you're kind of talking to everyone, right? Like if you go on Twitter and you tweet something, it's kind of like you're at a podium and you're saying, hey guys, that new BTS album, hashtag am I right? And then like emojis here, right? So you're kind of talking with people. You're announcing something to everyone. You can use whatever you like. How would you like to announce this to everyone? You can use 반말 if you want. A lot of people do, because they're just kind of, if you think you're just talking to yourself, like you're just like, oh, I'm so angry, or I love this, oh, so happy, and you feel like you're not directing it at anyone, feel free to use 반말. If you want to say something to other people, like you want this tweet to feel like you're directing it at everyone who's reading it. Like, hey, you guys, I really hope you do this. Please check this out, like this. You don't want to use 반말. You want to use 존댓말. But there's no rule for what you have to use. Just think about who you're directing it toward. What do you think about the person who's reading that? Do you feel like this is just like, oh, I'm just writing this down. I just want to get it out. I just want to vent, right? Just feel free to use 반말, because you're not directing it at anyone. You're just kind of throwing it out there. Or if you feel like, oh, I want to say something to the people who are reading my Twitter, definitely use 존댓말. Because if you use 반말, it might seem like you're being rude, like you're talking down to the people who are reading it. Billy's army confirmed. I don't know. I just got into using BTS as examples, and now I can't get out of it. Oh yeah, and there's the red pen just disappeared. Okay. There's an Instagram page that posts random stuff from these streams taken out of context. So go check that out on Instagram. It's pretty funny. Saw the post they made about BTS last week. What about saying yes and no in the different forms? Well, yeah, that would be for 반말, 아니야, or 아니야, depending how you're using it. 아니야 just means no, just the word no. And 아니야 means it isn't. So, like, I am not Korean. You would use 아니야, not 아냐. And for polite Korean, 존댓말, you would use, let's see, like 이야 as your ending for it is. Sorry, I should write this on this side. 이야 for it is. This is both for 반말. Actually, what am I doing? You wanted to know the yes and no for 반말 and for the 존댓말. So, 아니야, and then 이야 is for no, yes, and this is in 반말. And then if you want to say no and yes in 존댓말, hey, you should be able to read that. Then you would do, what am I doing? 아니에요. Actually, yeah. 아니에요 or 아니요. I need a bigger board. And then if you just want to say yes, I think that yes is probably the easier one. 네 is the polite way. 응 is the casual way. Sorry, this is really not helpful. I think it's because I'm trying to answer a question that actually there's two different ways to say no and two different ways to say yes in Korean, depending on how you're using it. And each one has a different way in 반말 and 존댓말. So I actually need more room on this board to go through them all. So I'll save that for another time when I have more space. But yeah, so if you're basically though, 네, if you're saying 네, it's polite, it's 존댓말, automatically, 존댓말. If you're saying 응, which is written just as 응, that's 반말 for yes. For no, if you're just going to say 아니요, that's no for 존댓말. 아니야 or 아니야. Or 아니, if you're just saying the word just no by itself. So this is just yes by itself. Yes. And this is just no by itself. I'm not going to teach you the other one because I think it would make the lesson too long to have to go about talking about the differences between them. So 아니요 and 아니, this is the casual one. 응, 아니, and this is the polite one. 네, 아니요. I'm not going to talk about the other forms of it because there would be 4 more, and this will be a whole new lesson. So just these, just how to say yes, just the word yes, and just the word no. This is much simpler then. So 네, 아니요, it's polite. 응, 아니 is the casual version of it. Okay, but we're not done with today's lesson. We also got one more quick thing I want to cover, and then we'll do it. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, someone upset, a bit confused. Yeah, exactly. It's my fault because I started trying to answer the question without thinking that there's actually 4 each for the forms. So it would actually have to be 8 ways of writing it down if I were to go through all the versions. So I just simplified it to just the first 4. So ignore the first part of that. Answering negative questions. Difference between me, 네, name, Billy? Oh, that's what I just did. 무신고엔 고람신니 몰루 크게. Yeah, that's nice. That's the Jeju dialects video I did. 무신고엔 고람신니 몰루 크게. And that's one of the ways you could say it, but there's other ways they could say it too that were all sound different. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to mention is, I'm going to be brief with this. So I said very clearly that if you use 나, it's 반말. And if you use 요, it's 존댓말, right? So I'll just say this first. Do not mix 나 with 요. If you have a 나 in the sentence, switch it to 저. Or if you wanted to be casual, then remove the 요. Okay? You got it? Okay, now I'm going to go on. You might see na plus yo anyway by native Koreans. So you're going to say, Billy, but my friend, he sometimes says 나는 something something 좋아해요 and ends the sentence with yo. What's up with that? Right? Like Seinfeld. So that is an acceptable way to mix them. That is actually, I'll say it grammatically wrong, and you should avoid it. So some Koreans will mix na with yo, but you should not do it. I'll tell you why. The yo form is polite. So if you use the yo form, you're trying to use 존댓말, right? You consider the other person to be someone you should be respectful toward. If you're using na, though, you're not lowering yourself also. You're just saying, I'm here, this is me, huh? I'm not talking up to you. But I also want to be polite, so I'm going to say yo at the end. That's what it means. It's kind of wrong. And you'll only hear this by much older Koreans. Much older Koreans might use this form. Not you, a non-native Korean studying Korean who's still a teenager or 20 or 30. This is only older Koreans might use this, and not all Koreans. Just some older Koreans will use this. So if you see this, it's not the norm. It's a special usage case, but that's what they're feeling. That's what they're thinking when they're using this. Like, I'm not going to lower myself. I am me. I'm not going to talk up to you. But I also don't want to sound rude. So I'm going to stick a yo at the end. So it's kind of a contradicting, but it's acceptable. Some people will use it, but you should not use it. If you use this yourself, it can seem a little bit weird unless you're much older than the person who you're talking with. It's sometimes used, but I would recommend staying away from it. Some of us are even older than 40. Yes, that's true. I know I've gotten emails from people who said they watch my videos and they're in their 60s. So I'm like, wow, really? That's cool. Awesome. Is there a difference between saying yes and yup? What do you mean? Nem. Oh, you mean nep? Nep it's the slang way of saying yes. So it's kind of like a funny way of saying yes that you want to sound, you're speaking politely. You're not using casual. This is not casual. Nep is not a casual ending, but it's a playful, polite way to say yes. So you would not use this in a formal situation. You wouldn't use it in a business situation. You wouldn't use it when you're talking with your teacher or anything like that, but you could use it to a coworker. You could use it to an acquaintance who you kind of know well, but that you wouldn't speak casually to. So you can say like nene or nene. You might hear that. Like, yep, I got it, but still not being rude. So like I said, it's kind of a playful way to say yes when you're speaking politely, but only use it if you have a good rapport with that person, if you have a good relationship with that person. Don't use it to strangers. If you say nip, if a stranger asks you a question, it'll almost sound like you're mocking them or you're talking down, because it's like it means that we're friendly. If you're not friendly, it kind of can sound rude. So that's what it means. I have this like hair in my vision that I don't know where it's coming from. It's like an eyelash or something. I don't know. Okay. So in the future, I'll do a video about this also, but I haven't done one yet. Okay, so before we finish, quick announcements, and I'm going to give you a test. So again, check out the Instagram page, Go Billy Korean Fans. It's pretty funny. Also, check out the community tab on my YouTube channel. There's going to be a Discord chat. Actually, Himang, you can feel free to link that here if you want. But I'm also going to link it in the community channel after this chat finishes. There's already been a few dozen people in there from my Patreons and my members, but now it's going to be open to everyone to join. If you're a member or a Patreon supporter, message me and I'll give you a special flair. I'll give you a special tag on your name that lets you enter the members channel. There's like a special membership channel where I'll post secret things there sometimes. But other than that, check that out. It's a free community. Is Discord okay for computer? Yeah, both computer, mobile, they have an app. They both work fine. Kind of looks like a hamburger. My gosh. Wow. You know, the first one I noticed was that utta, to laugh or to smile. Totally looks like a stick person, right? Totally looks like a stick person. And there's a few ones like hiet. I remembered it was an H sound because it looks like a hat. It looks like a guy wearing a hat, right? So that's how I remember the hiet when I was learning. There's all these like dumb things like that to remember how words are written. Yeah, the community there is pretty good. I like it. So I hang out there pretty often. Time zones are way too different. Yeah, but hopefully we'll get people from various time zones so that it should become a 24-hour chat, that there should be people there all the time. But currently it's mostly just North America time. Okay, now we have a little bit of a quiz. So it's been 2 hours since I started. So I always try to keep these lessons under 2 hours. Okay, we're back. I saw that happen, so I was like, I'm right on it as soon as it crashed. Pictionary with Billy. Freezing for the quiz. Yes, it's extra thick. Speaking of time zones, possible to change the time for the live class? We can't, because if I change the time even 1 hour, then it becomes impossible for people in either parts of Europe to come in, because as it is, this is like 10 o'clock at Europe time when it starts and it goes past midnight, 6 a.m. in Korea. So if I make it an hour later, then that means nobody in Europe can come in at all. If I make it an hour earlier, then no one in Korea can come in at all. So I'll look at the analytics for the video and I'll see where are people coming from and I'll think about it again. But I think we have to do it at this time so that the most people can come. But there is the people who are between London and between Korea, anywhere in that part of the world, who are, they're getting left out because they wouldn't be able to wake up at 3 a.m. or 2 a.m. to come to the chat. So yeah, I would like to get more people to come in, but I don't think I could do that without messing up everything else. Yes, Ahimang just posted the Discord chat link, so go check that out. Yeah, so we can't change the chat. Like, I could adjust it 2 hours in either direction if you guys wanted to. I could start this 2 hours earlier or 2 hours later. But like I said, 2 hours later will allow more people in Korea to come, but nobody in all of Europe. And 2 hours earlier will allow more Europeans to come in, but nobody who's in Korea. So if the analytics show that no one is watching from Korea, I don't know, is anyone watching from Korea right now? If it shows that nobody comes in from Korea, then I could change it 2 hours earlier. Korea doesn't have daylight savings. Yes, they don't. Anyone from Korea? This time is perfect for Australia. Midnight in Tunisia. Oh, Tunisia, awesome. Okay, so we have a quiz. So the first thing is, you're meeting somebody for the first time at a school that you're both attending. Would you speak to them with, let's say, okay, 반말 or 존댓말? So you're meeting someone for the first time at school. How would you talk with them? Would you use 나는 without a 요, or would you use 저 with a 요? Go ahead and join the chat. Yeah, Ahimang posted a chat link, so you can join the chat. Diana D, yes, I'm from London. Nice. 존댓말, 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 존댓말. Yes, that's right. Of these two, if you meet someone for the first time at school, even though you're attending the same school, you would still want to speak 존댓말 to them. If you use 반말, it would be kind of like you're like, hey kid, who's the new kid in school? I'm the popular guy around here. Then you'd be like talking like that. So, some people might do that. It's school. There are bullies. There are all types of kids at school. But typically, 존댓말. I'm drowning in new people. Okay, I apologize. We'll clean out the Discord channel soon. I'll join up there too, and I'll help out. You're talking with someone. Okay, next question. You're talking with someone in business. Which form would you use for? Which form do you use? So you're meeting a client for business. Which one would you use? Would you use 반말, casual speech, or would you use 존댓말? This is kind of an easy question. Okay, people are already saying the answer before I even finished asking the question. That's right, use 존댓말. So which ending would you want to use? Would you want to use the 요 ending, or would you want to use the 니다 ending when you're just making a statement? You're just saying something. So you're saying, I like that. 좋아해요 or 좋아합니다. I'll say this. You could use both. And it'll depend on the business. It'll depend on the situation. But it's important to know that you would definitely not use 반말 in that situation. And you would be safe using 요 form or 니다 form if you want to be more polite. And I would say if you're in a business situation, you're talking with an important client, you want to be polite, I would say use 니다. But when you get a little more comfy with them and you talk with them more, 요 form is probably okay. So 존댓말 is the safest one to use for most situations. Okay, next question. You're meeting a coworker. The coworker is but you've known the coworker for a long time, but the coworker is 5 years older than you. So you're not like best friends, but you know this coworker. You've worked together for a while, and they're 5 years older than you. Would you use 반말 or 존댓말? Billy, can they be mixed? Well, 입니다 would be the 니다 form, and 요 would be 이에요 or 예요. I have a video about that, the smiley face person. If you search polite Korean on my YouTube channel, you'll find a video about that. That's right, you would use the 존댓말. It doesn't matter if you know the coworker, if you work together for a long time, unless you're like really close friends, you would still use 존댓말. You'd still be polite to them. Doesn't matter if it's a coworker. Okay, next question. Your business acquaintance. So you're meeting a business acquaintance who you know. And your business acquaintance introduces you to their kid. Their kid is 10 years old. How would you speak to that kid? Okay, this is a little kid. I'm glad I'm not in Korea or else I would have missed a lot of things. No, it's okay. Sup, kid? You want candy? Panmarva with a sweet tone. Tessa, that's nice. Panmarva with a sweet tone. Yes. Yes, you guys are kind of both right. I would say you're safe using Panmar. You're safe to use Panmar, but you're also not wrong to use 존댓말. So, if you want to be really safe, like you really don't know, 존댓말, it's always good. But if you know it's a kid, so a little kid, 10-year-old kid, kind of little, feel free to use Panmar. But if you use 존댓말, you'll be okay too. Okay, next question. And I got to finish because I got to go in the chat so it doesn't go crazy. You're calling your... Okay, you're going to make a phone call to your mother. So you're talking with your mother. So you're talking with your mom. Use 반말 or 존댓말, talking with your mom. Some of you are saying 존댓말, some of you are saying 반말. Okay, the answer is you could use either, but if it's your mom, you have a good relationship. Like I'm saying, relationship is important. How close are you with that person, right? It's okay to use 반말 because within your direct, immediate family, you can use 반말 to her. But there's no rule that you have to. Okay? A lot of people, it's not the norm, but a lot of people will still use 존댓말 and speak politely with their parents. Even though they're their parents. They've known them their whole lives and they're really close with them. Still, some people will speak 존댓말 to their parents. But 반말 is also fine too. So you can use 반말 if you want to be a little more respectful, 존댓말. And that'll depend on your relationship with your parents. Okay, next question is, you're writing a letter to your girlfriend or boyfriend. So you're writing your boyfriend or girlfriend a letter, just talking about what you're doing. Which one would you use? Latin moms are dangerous. Yes, that's right. I don't have a Latin mom. I did have a Latin grandmother. I'm actually I'm half Hispanic, believe it or not. My grandma's Mexican from Mexico City, and my grandpa, they're dead. And my grandpa is from Basque, next to Spain. So European, Spain, Spanish, and Mexican. So half European, half Hispanic, but I don't look at all. It's because I have stronger genes from my mother's side, which is European and Russian. So you're writing a letter to your girlfriend, and that's correct. You would use 반말 to your girlfriend. You would not use 존댓말 to your girlfriend unless unless that's your thing. You want to speak politely with each other. Okay, I'm not going to judge you. But 반말 is what you would use for your relationship like that. It doesn't matter how old you are. It's your girlfriend or boyfriend. 반말. You can be really casual with them because you're really close. You have a very close relationship. You probably share the same straw when you drink soda. 반말 is fine. Okay, next question. If you're writing a fan letter, would if you wanted to say, I am your big fan, would you use 저 for I or 나 for I? And you're writing a fan letter to BTS, right? Your favorite band, the best K-pop band ever, and you're writing a fan letter and you want to say I, do you use 저 or 나? Do some married couples speak 존댓말? Yes. Some married couples will speak politely with each other. And that's on a case-by-case basis. Typically when dating, you'll kind of establish how you guys want to talk with each other. And sometimes if a girl is dating an older guy, then the girl might start off the relationship just speaking politely, 존댓말 to him. And then when they get married, they might just continue that, still speaking politely. But it depends. I would say that's not the norm, but it happens. You'll hear some couples speak politely to each other. I think it's dumb, personally, but it kind of feels like you're not that close. But it shows respect. So maybe they just want to show extra respect to their spouse. Maybe typically it would be the wife talking up to the husband, honestly, which you might say, oh, sexism, whatever, that's gender. But whatever, it is what it is. Sometimes you might hear wives speaking 존댓말 to their husband, but it's less common. Most common is just 반말 to each other. or at least kind of speaking friendly, 반말, like not rude. So yes, if you're writing a fan letter, you would definitely do 저. You would not ever want to use 나 to a fan. I mean, as a talking up to your like a celebrity you like as a fan, because this would sound like you think they're on your same level or below, and you're like saying, "Get on my level, like get down to my level." 저 is like, "Oh, I am a big fan of yours," like that. So you need to use 저. Okay, and then I had another question, but someone actually already asked. It was about tweeting. If you're tweeting someone, would you use the yo form or not? And as I mentioned, so I'll just tell you again, it depends who you think your audience is. You can use 반말 if you kind of feel like you're just venting to yourself or just venting out in the open. You don't care who listens. Or you use 요, polite, or 존댓말 if you're speaking to a group and you think they're going to be reading your letter and you want it to feel like it's addressed to people who are reading it. So that's what you do. All right. That's the end of the lesson for today. Again, I could not keep this within 2 hours. I apologize. My girlfriend is Korean. I want me to 반말, but my Korean is not that good. I just speak polite. 반말 is translated banana on Google Translate. What? Are you serious? 반말 translates as banana? Okay. I've never heard that before, but I totally would believe you. 감사합니다, 빌리 씨. When you said your favorite K-pop, we all thought of it. Though, as you know, I've said this before. I'm not like a big fan of K-pop music. I am aware of some K-pop bands, but the Korean music that I know is all older. It was before K-pop was a thing. So, yes, thank you guys for coming. Again, after this live lesson, check out the community tab. There's going to be a link for a Discord chat. 희망 in here, the moderator has already shared that. So you can join there if you've already seen that. But I'll be joining up soon today as well. You can ask Korean questions whenever you want. If I'm there, I'll try to provide answers, but I'm not always there. And there will be other people who can also help you, and we can learn and practice with each other and hopefully grow into a very nice, big community of Korean learners. So thank you guys again for coming, and I will see you guys again next week. This coming week, I'll put up another poll on the YouTube community tab that you can vote on what you want to learn for next week. We might do one of the things that people didn't vote on this week. We might do that for next week, or something entirely different, depending on what you guys want. Indian grandparents don't play games. I've heard stories, yes. The banana thing is true. That's funny. How do I make my Korean sentences longer? Whenever I try to speak in Korean, only small sentences. I did a live stream about that, about Korean sentence structure. I would say focus on learning sentence structure, making sure you understand how do sentences work in Korean. Because if you know how sentences work, like how do pieces go together, then you'll be able to make longer sentences. So I would say focus on that. Drug restaurant squad? What does that mean? Anyway, so I'll finish this here so we don't go on too long. I already went on 15 minutes over. Thanks guys for coming. I'll see you guys again next week in the live stream. Again, check out the community tab. 그럼 다음에 또 봐. Bye.